Folks, salutations, Pat Flynn, Aleks, the Hebrew Hammer Salkin, and today we are going to teach you the push-up, the basic push-up. This is, again, part of our body weight training series. We've got the garment on, the religious garment for the God of the Gains. We're asking for his many graces today. We're gonna cover some basic push-up progressions. Hello and welcome. It's really important. The push-up is such a fundamental exercise. And so many people they either don't pay enough attention to it or they overlook the nuances. Now, of course, you can say this about any exercise, and we often do, but it's worth spending, Kim, what's up, how are you? A little extra attention on the push-up, because when you get this exercise right, like the kettlebell swing, it sets the foundation and the stage for so many other cool and important exercises that come afterwards. Whether it's just more difficult push-up variations like the one-arm push-up, or the handstand push-up. Maybe we'll do an attempt at the weighted vest handstand push-up. We'll see if I can, we'll see if we can crank out a rep of that just for fun, to show you where we're eventually going with this. Actually, what do you think? Should we try that?
Start it now? Start at the peak.
You guys want to see if I could do
a
a weighted vest? So this is like a 40-pound weighted vest. I do not think I could do it without a spot. Do we want to see me attempt a handstand push-up with this just to see where we're going? And then we'll come way back to the basics and work the push-up. What do you think? Give me some like grunts of acknowledgement. Say like, yes, Pat, let's see if you can do this, or let's see you fail magnificently and miserably.
Well, we got a like, and I think that's a good sign.
You know, if I don't fail, it's not death that I fear. It's mutilation.
I think worse than that is embarrassment.
Well, embarrassment I can handle. It really is the mutilation part that I'm fearing, especially since we'd be doing it on the pavement. But you know what? Do as I say, not as I do. They say do it. All right, so again, weighted vest. This is about 40 pounds added. I'm going to ask for Alex's spot. I really don't know what this is going to look like. What do you say? We'll do it?
Let's do it.
This is pure speculation, folks. And then we'll come back and then we'll teach you the push-up. Let's see what we got. All right, so there it is.
You got it in the right angle here?
All right, give me some encouragement, some likes, some hearts.
You're at home, clap for it.
Alex is going to spot me. This is a good tip. His goal when you're spotting the handstand push-up, 1, make sure I don't mutilate myself. 2, give me the least amount of assistance I need to be successful. Okay, here we go.
Push down hard. Okay, point the toes, get tight, press. Oh, angelic. Stable, good. Lower slowly.
Oh, that felt kind of easy.
Wasn't so bad.
How was that, folks? Did that look okay? Did that look decent? Thank you, Alex, for your saving grace.
My pleasure. I'm happy
Literally
to help you not get mutilated.
How did that look? You guys are the judge. Did that look all right? We're working on those with the weighted vest. Overloading certain exercises, like the handstand push-up, is a great way to speed along strength progress. That was a move that, from a pure strength standpoint, forget the balance or any of that, and the balance gets thrown off. That's when you put on a vest. The proprioception is a little different, which is another reason why it's good to have a spot. But doing intelligent overloads of an exercise with weighted vests on the body weight, movements, handstand push-ups, really good way to kind of speed along your strength. So let's all right, that was fun. We all had a good time. I'm not mutilated. Let's get back to the basics. Let's talk the basic push-up. Why is it so important to get this exercise right? And then let's talk about some common push-up mistakes and how to fix them.
Well, one of the reasons that it's really important is that the push-up is one of those exercises that, while you can overdo, it takes a lot more effort to overdo them. So push-ups really lend themselves to high volume, and they are also very fundamental for any other type of pushing movement. They have a tendency to be a little bit more gentle, or we'll say a little gentler on the body than like dips, or even a lot of overhead pressing. And as great as both of those movements are, many people find that after a while, and maybe not at that long of a while, their shoulders are going to start protesting. So there's a lot that goes into the, well, hello there. A lot that goes into the variety of these movements, or these variety of movements that you need to consider. But the push-up is always going to be a good base for, number one, getting in a lot of pushing volume, which can help back up, let's say, your military press or your dips if you really want to jack up your strength and those things. And the other thing, too, is that they'll add a nice amount of muscle without it becoming something that's too cumbersome. and they're a lot of fun. So
Yeah.
I think those are all pretty good reasons.
Yeah, so again, push-ups, and we talked about this with pull-ups, are an exercise that lends itself really well to a high frequency. You can, and I don't want to say should right away, but eventually should do a lot of push-ups. High rep, relatively lower intensity push-ups. When you're very strong, push-ups are relatively low intensity. Let's be honest, doing a push-up is not that hard. I'm not saying that there's a fault in your moral character if you can't do a push-up, but I might be suggesting you could be a little weak. Don't worry, we can fix that. Push-ups with body weight are a great way to, like Alex said, build a good baseline level of strength. Awesome for the joints too, especially high rep, really good joint conditioning. And we can do them virtually anywhere, which is the benefit of a lot of body weight exercises. So let's look at basic push-up form, and then, excuse me, we'll look at some common push-up mistakes and how to fix them. Sound good?
Sounds great.
All right, so you want a demo? You want me to demo?
I'll demo.
Alex will demo. So he'll scoot back. And all right, so how do we set up for a proper push-up? That's the first question.
Yeah, so first thing that I like to do is
Amanda, how are
I
you?
like to try to set my hand width. So you don't want to just kind of go in haphazardly. There are a variety of different widths that you could use or different hand positions, but you'll want to have a standard or one that really kind of fits your body type well. It should just feel pretty good and feel pretty natural. And then from there, you can also start experimenting with other hand widths, okay? So first things first, we'll deal with that. Okay, so what I like to do is pull my hands back, push them toward the ground. That helps me to kind of get the back muscles engaged, pulling back and then pushing forward. Now when I'm here, a lot of times what you'll see is people will sag at the hips, all right? You don't want to do that. You want to make sure that you're keeping a nice amount of tension in your glutes and in your abs, all right? And as you're doing it, you want to make sure, there are a couple of things you could do. You could look straight forward or you could look straight down. I recommend that you look down, at least initially, because if you're looking straight forward, if you're able to keep a good abdominal brace, it's not going to be too much of a problem. But if you have issues with the abdominal brace, like if you have more of a tendency to start like this, all it's going to do is encourage that.
Yes.
Okay? So looking straight down is going to encourage you, once you have made the correction and keeping your abs and your glutes tight, it's going to make it a lot easier for you to maintain them. Okay? So once you get in that position, looking straight down.
Again, look at the neutral spine.
Exactly. I'm going to go down, press back up. Okay? Now, as I'm doing it, one thing you'll notice, I'll show you from the front, is that my elbows go out very slightly, but I try to keep them more, a little closer to my ribs, then I try to push them out, right? A very common thing that you'll see is that people will do this sort of a thing. You don't want that, okay? You want the elbows to go behind you, like so.
So a good rule of thumb or a good rule of elbow is somewhere within a 45-degree angle.
Yeah.
Right? And some people might refer to this, sometimes you hear it called a military-style push-up. I think this is the starting push-up, where the closer the elbows are, or your arms are pinned to your side and the elbows pointed straight back, the better. Why is that important? One, it's going to make you stronger in the long run, this position. It might be more difficult at first, but it's going to make you stronger, especially when we move on to more difficult push-up variations, specifically the one-arm push-up. You need to nail an elbows in position conventionally if you want to have a strict and passable one-arm push-up. Not like the Rocky one-arm push-up, but like we're talking a really good-looking one-arm push-up. It all comes back to having this fundamentally organized position with the push-up, which Alex just showed you. It's also going to make, here's another thing. If you have issues with your shoulders and the push-ups, if you feel like a little bit of pinching or discomfort, try bringing the elbows in and see what it feels. You know, sometimes people kind of enter into impingement just because their grip is too wide. They're falling into a little bit too much external rotation. So another tip, when you're doing the push-up, similar to a bench press, right? If you're into benching, you learn to cue trying to bend the bar in half, right? Well, same with a push-up. We want to imagine as we're pushing, we're trying to externally rotate against the ground. We're almost trying to twist the ground away as we do a push-up. Maybe you can show from another angle of what we're trying to do. So you would imagine that something like this would be the feeling when you're doing the push-up. You're trying to twist the ground away or externally rotate the palms and shoulders out as you go through the move. Does that make sense?
So a cue that you might use would be that you're trying to open jars with your hands.
That's good.
Our friend Jim Ferriss really likes that one. It's a very, very useful cue. So what that would look like is take a look at my elbows, right? So right now, they're just kind of facing outward, and now I'm trying to open the jars. You notice that my elbow pits start to point forward, and then from here, it's much easier to get the muscle engaged necessary to be able to push back up without relying just on my shoulders. I'm able to get my triceps engaged.
Can we see that one more time? Yeah. So I just want to point out what Alex is showing you here. So when you're doing this properly, you'll notice the crook of his elbows turns forward. This means he's generating those external rotation forces against the ground, trying to find that ideal joint centration throughout the movement. Again, more difficult at first, but stronger in the long term. And this is what you will realize about a lot of the way that exercise progressions work when done properly. You'll take a little bit more time to get things right at first, even if it's more difficult. A common problem with any exercise with the push-up is people will go for whatever is easiest for them to start, even if it is mechanically disadvantageous in the long run or even hurtful. And we certainly don't want that. So we want to establish a strong, integrated, mechanically advantageous position from the very beginning, even if it is more difficult, because over the long term, these are the positions where you're not only going to be safest, but strongest. And that's an important principle. Safety and performance need not and should not be at odds. So not a coincidence that elbows in, trying to externally rotate, this is not only going to make you strongest in the long term, but it's also going to be very likely the healthiest position for your shoulders as well.
Yeah, and one of the things too that you notice when we're focusing a lot on like tension and strength generation techniques. So if we're assuming now that you're starting at the beginning of your push-up journey, so the thing that you're going to want to do is you're going to want to build up strength in just the standard push-up as we've talked about. And then as time goes on, you're going to be able to start working on doing them for higher reps, where you'll have all these things that will just naturally fall in place. You won't have to think about them so much, and you'll be able to start knocking out higher rep sets of push-ups. So for right now, let's say you can do a decent set of 10 in the fashion that we're showing you. So once you get to the point where you can do maybe 20, 25, or 30, something like that, you can start working your way toward more and more sets of higher reps. And ultimately, you can start working up to some pretty cool numbers and reap some excellent benefits as well.
Okay, what questions or problems do we have with the push-ups? I see we have some nice comments here. Let's look through. Gotta run. I'll come back and watch the rest later. Good stuff, guys. Thanks, Derek. Nice. My elbows have been out too far. I can feel the difference. Very likely, if you've been doing this sort of wide arm push-up variation, we're not saying that's bad. There is a place for different grip variations, certainly. But if you've been doing that almost exclusively, expect it to be more difficult at first when you bring the elbows in.
Yeah.
That's normal. It's all right. You'll get stronger. Sorry, I'm trying to see the comments without putting my finger up everyone's nose. That's cool. They're actually easier that way. Certainly it is possible you might experience the opposite. I would say generally that's not the case. When people correct the form, it tends to become more difficult. But again, in the long term, you'll be stronger because of this. Listen to the man with glasses.
Both of them. So Amanda says, man, I want my push-up to look like that. Well, you will get there. By the way, another thing to say is that if you're not able to start off on the ground with your push-ups, I wouldn't bother doing things like push-ups on your knees. I don't think that they lend themselves very well to doing full push-ups later. But what you can do and what you should do are push-ups on an elevation. So what we might look at for something like that is, now this is pretty low elevation. You may start a little bit higher. That's perfectly fine. But you want to get into the habit of having your body positioned in the same way that you'll have it positioned for regular push-ups. So if I'm in a position like this, right, hips aren't sagging, hips aren't hiking, you'll want to apply that same thing to an elevation. So a good example would be like right here. I get into an elevation here, and you'll need to finesse it a little bit, but ultimately when you do it, you're going to want to come down until the edge of whatever surface you're using is right at about your sternum level, okay? So you might even start at the bottom, okay? Get your position, like so, and then push. So you can start that off. Maybe you're close to the ground, you might start a little closer. Maybe you're not quite there, you might start it on a countertop or on your stairs or something like that. But that's a good way to start practicing that form so that it looks nice and that your body is used to performing them in such a fashion that when you get to the ground, you can replicate it easily. And then from there, you just add up the reps.
So what Alex is saying is when it comes to push-up progressions, rather than automatically going to what is for a lot of people the default, your knees, better off adjusting the angle, keeping the body position the same, but increasing or decreasing the intensity by adjusting the angle. Alex showed you a way to decrease the intensity by elevating the hands. The reverse is true. You can increase the intensity by elevating the feet. And also elevating the angle with the relation of your hands to your sternum as well. But here's how you can make it a little bit more difficult. Put the feet up, and now we're doing a decline push-up. So, very simple way to just play with levers to add intensity to a workout without having to use something like this, a weighted vest. Now, I think weighted vests are a great tool, but not everybody is going to have one. You're not always going to be able to bring one around with you. When you're very serious about bodyweight training, I think they are an awesome device, but they're certainly not a necessary device. Any other question? Oh, here's a question. Susie asks, will rotation of the hands help with the heads of the arms from dropping down at the bottom?
Heads of the arms?
The heads of the arms. What do we, maybe shoulders slumping forward? Is that what we're talking about? If so, yes. We don't want, and that's something that's common. We'll think about, Susie, if you could restate that, maybe try and clarify that for us so we can answer it for you. Another position that is common is this kind of head forward position, right?
I
so
see.
why don't
okay,
we?
Maybe that's what it is.
Yeah.
actually.
So why don't we talk about that? What should be the cue that people use when they're doing push-ups? What are some ways to try and make sure that we're keeping our head and neck in line with the exercise? And well, first off, why does it even matter?
Well, I would say the first thing would be I would tell what's that?
Wrong answer.
Absolutely
Not quick
wrong.
enough.
He knows me well enough to know I'm about to give the wrong answer. First thing I would just tell people, don't do that. A lot of times people aren't paying any attention, so they're doing this sort of like, head falling forward thing. The other thing is that you might start off in the bottom position and just, like if I'm coaching somebody through it, I might say something like, let's start at the bottom position, and I want you to touch your chin to the ground. Okay, now try to get it as far away from the ground as you can, all right? So they're used to getting their head back like that, and then from there, doing the push-up, okay? So that's a good way of getting them to feel it, and also start in a position where they're going to know that as they get down toward the bottom, what's going to happen if they have their head forward when they get that kind of depth is that they're going to hit their chin on the ground, and it's not going to feel good, all right? So apart from that, I think those are probably two of the best things to keep in mind, is just give yourself a reminder at the start of each set, and then just make that one of the things that you focus on.
So let's recap it, because we've gone through a lot. So one of the first mistakes we showed is improper body alignment at the push-up. And what we tried to demonstrate is that a push-up is essentially a moving plank. So take the time to set it up right. Abs are tight, glutes are engaged. We want to see a straight line, crown to coccyx alignment, from the back of the head down through the tailbone. We want to maintain that at all times. This will often mean feeding tension forward into the exercise, tensing at the start, getting into that good organized position. The second mistake that we pointed out is people often are haphazard, inconsistent, or erratic with their hand placement and shoulder position. And what we wanted to demonstrate is that the fundamental conventional push-up, the one that you should start with and master, are elbows pointed back, arms against the side. No wider than 45 degrees. This is not only the position where you will be safest, but also strongest in the long term, even if it is more initially difficult moving forward. This is like the 80-20. You fix these few mistakes, you're gonna fix pretty much the vast majority of issues we see with the push-up. Then we covered some progressions. One of the best progressions for the push-up is to just alter the intensity by changing the angle, either bringing the hands up and then lower over time to the ground, or if you want to make it more difficult, you can bring the feet up. Any last minute questions or pieces of advice? This is just a push-up. In the future episode, we'll get back to the one-arm push-up, and of course, that's all-elusive handstand push-up as well. But we got to get these basics down first.
So one thing that Susie says here is she's referring to the shoulder. So I'm assuming you mean the shoulders coming up like that. That a lot of times happens when you are not strong enough as you're getting down further and your body's trying to recruit your traps. I would just say spend more time on a progression, like working at some sort of an elevation. That will really groove the proper position with the shoulders being pulled down strongly. And you're just going to find that that's probably going to happen regardless, like when you start getting toward your limit with your strength, or maybe the number of reps that you can do. Your body's just going to try to recruit other muscles to get the job done. May not be the healthiest thing, such as for your shoulders, trying to do push-ups like that, definitely not healthy. Best way to move forward is just to take a short step back and be patient.
Sagely advice.
Always.
Listen to the men with glasses. Nothing says wisdom like severe astigmatism.
I think we can all agree on that.
Folks, thanks for tuning in. If you found this helpful, please like it, share it, leave a comment, pass it along, tag both of your friends, and stay tuned to the Pat Flynn Show, the podcast as well. We're going to be doing a little chat later today, most likely, no promises, on push-up programming, workouts, etc. So we will continue the conversation over there. Only problem with the podcast is you can't show stuff. Here we can show stuff, there we can talk about it a little bit more on a technical programming level. Thanks for tuning in. See you next time.
Adieu.